Okay, we're going to go, this was probably going to be in a two-part system. We're going to do this in two parts. It's going to be cancer, tumors, and other life-threatening diseases we can heal now. So the first thing we have to understand is that the system in our bodies incorporates a quite marvelous and unique to the animal world. They're very different. And denial is such a strategy. It's invoked to help us deal with the crisis in our lives. It allows us to hear the news that we have a life-threatening disease, or we have something that's going to shorten our life, or going to kill us within a given amount of time, unless there are some major changes in our condition. So we're unable to really assimilate and digest this information because it's really overwhelming. And so what our body does is we go into a denial state. So the information someday might come to light. It may take longer for us to inculcate that information into our being. In the meantime, while we're in this state of denial, the cancer marches on and on a never-ending destructive path in your body. Denial is protective, and it is necessary part of the strategies that we employ to help us deal with threatening diseases, trauma, and drama. I know it's quite prevalent in people that have been early on in their younger days. They may have something that was really traumatic that happened to them, and they go into a state of denial for years until later on, through hypnosis or through whatever it is, recall, they start to recall what happened. And sometimes this is prevalent in when a child has been molested. They don't want to face the fact that their loved one has done something to them, has perpetrated something on them that is devastating. So anyway, the cancer marches on while we're in denial. And denial is a protective part of the strategies that we live in. It employs us to help to deal with these traumas and dramas that come our way. But it prevents us, the biggest thing that it does, it prevents us from going into meltdown, suicide, or other total chaos. It's a system that preserves the status quo, the present and the now. The problem is that this defense mechanism may go on for years. And in the case of cancer, it's going to really put a damper on our ability to help join in and become an integral part of our healing. So as the cancer goes in and we finally get out of denial, we're able to jump in to start to play a proactive part in our recovery. This is a real key. If we're unable to play a proactive part and just basically we turn our lives over to somebody else and tell them, well, you're the expert, you deal with it, we're leaving half of the equation out, because we are part of that. We develop this just like we develop when we cut ourselves. We develop a scab that helps to heal it. Well, if we developed it, that means we can undo it. So yeah, with the help of modern medication and modern technologies and things, it's going to go faster. But we need to unmask this denial that we're in so that we can get into active participation in our recovery. The denial system masks us from the reality of various forms of fixed addictive thinking. We are flooded with tons of rational statements that are of little context, which we tend to medicate our condition and keep us in the unknown. In this lesson, we will be showing you how easy it is to speed up the process and initialize your true condition. And also at the same time, we can internalize this condition and take the needed steps to start to clear the affection, the affliction. So one of the things that happened a while back was my son Scott, when he first went through radiation and chemotherapy when he was in his teens. I think he was like 18 or 19 years old. And what he did was he was totally, like, for weeks, even though he was in radiation, he was in going to radiation. We were taking him like 2 or 3 times a week. And even though he had lost his beard and his hair and all these things, he still didn't recognize the fact that he had an affliction. This cancer was in his system. Until one night we were having dinner, and all of a sudden he started choking on a pea, and the next thing you know it, he was coughing and coughing and coughing, and he coughed up the pea, and he was like, "Oh my God, I've got cancer." And I thought, wow, it took you long enough. But that's how strong this denial system is within our system. So we have to remember there are some basic things that we can do to help get us out of this denial. And of course, T.A.T is one of the biggest things. It becomes an integral part of how we can clear the denial and then start the process of recovery. So, what we do on the first step of T.A.T is to look at the worst case scenario. Something like, I have a threatening cancer condition which will eventually disfigure or kill me. And I'm often asked, why do we start with such a bleak and hurtful statement of fact? Well, what we want to do is shake off the roots of denial, to look at the worst case scenario so we can take ownership, and then we can rid ourselves of this. When we verbalize the condition in the poorest light, the worst condition, the bleakest possibilities, then we're able to deal with it as an object and not an emotion, so that we don't go into a cathartic experience of this thing, so that we don't bring all this emotional charge to what's happening. Yeah, these are morbid thoughts that rush through your mind. Just let them run through, fly by, let them be fleeting thoughts. Otherwise, they deplete the energy that you have in your own system. But what we want to do is deplete the energy that's attached or tagged to these emotional connections that we have. Now, you might notice things in your body as you're taking this pose. You might notice some movement of feelings, or you might hear something, or you might visualize something. So that these are things that take place because we all have different languages that we speak. There's the auditory, which people are pretty well tuned into hearing, and the auditory language, people will say, do you hear what I say? And then there's the visual. And those people are really attached to the things that are very visual in their world. They'll say things like, you see what I mean? And then there's the kinesthetic. And those people talk in a language of feelings. And they'll say, do you know how I feel? And so these are the different languages that people speak. So as you're in pose, those languages become prominent. And so they'll give us clues as to what direction to go in. They will alert us to things that we need to pay attention to. They will give you an insight of what needs to be cleared as fixed thinking comes along with you. That you have created this condition. Either jot them down or discuss them with your T.A.T guide. Those are the best things to do. So lesson 2 is, when we get grateful for our lessons in this life, it will make more sense of our lives. So there are some lessons that we learn, and a lot of them have to do with pain and hurt and betrayal and all of these things. They're big type lessons that have a lot of emotional charge to them. And we're used to them creating pain in us. And we know for a fact that there may be other lives that we have lived, or maybe there's future lives that we might live. I really don't want to discount that because I don't want to miss anything in my journey. I have a hard time believing that we're put here on this plane or this earth that we're on now just to make this one-time journey. I really do believe that we have multiple lives that we have lived, and over each life we're given a task to go through some changes, some lessons that we need to learn so that we can come out on the other side a different person. It may or may not be true, I don't know, but like I say, I don't want to take a chance that I'm going to miss something. So it's really not a far stretch to think that way. And the other thing is that if we're sent here to learn these lessons, that means there has to be a contract set up between someone else that needs to give you the lesson or perpetrate this on you and yourself. And so you signed up for this lesson. And God bless the people on the other side that are causing you all this pain and hurt because they've done their job. They've done what they're supposed to have done in their obligation to this contract. So we assume that part of this pain and hurt, betrayal, abuse, anxiousness, heartache are the lowest levels that we'll ever endure. And the lessons could be viewed as something that, as we experience them, then we're able to understand the other side of all of that. Because if we've never gone through the depths of hell, we're never going to really be able to enjoy the fruits of heaven. So you're able to learn from these lessons. And as you learn, you become a richer, more tuned in, and able to understand and be empathetic. You're learning to be patient, loving, kind, and giving. As you've been through the other side of all this, now you know what the goodness is and how you can experience that to greater depths. So the more horrible things that have happened to you, the greater you can enjoy the heights of goodness in your world. For many years, I viewed all that pain and hurt and abuse and wrongdoings and things that I had done. I feared it. I thought it was a terrible thing. I was unable to navigate the emotional charges connected with it all. And I would stuff it into like a box, and I would keep it in my box of nightmares and pain. And if the lid were ever to be pried up, even just a little, the emotion would flow out like a raging river, and I would just be overwhelmed and couldn't handle it. And in fact, that's one of the reasons that after I was 6 months on the program, that I thought, well, I need to do away with myself because I just can't handle this pain. I didn't have anything to cover the pain anymore. I just had to deal with the reality of it. And that's when I learned that these experiences were really gifts. They were lessons that I had learned that happened, they're over with, and they're done. And so all of these experiences could be in this box, but it became my Pandora's box of empathy. The gifts that allowed me to align myself with my greater journey in life. It allowed me to be empathetic. It allowed me to understand others that have been through the same thing that I had been through. Because most of all of my learnings really have come from walking the walk. And yeah, you got the degrees and I've got all that stuff, but it's not the same as actually going through it and experiencing it. When you walk the walk, the credibility is much higher. And it may not be the exact same conditions and things that have happened to you as happened to me, but things that were awful close, I could really relate. So it makes a difference. So we need to know that we've created this lesson in our body. Just like you grew a hand, an arm, a leg, a head in your mother's womb, and you develop a scab over a cut, you grow fingernails and hair, and you produce all of these things, you have grown this tumor or cancer or destructive immune system. The good news is that because you've developed it, that you grew it, and it's produced by you and your conditions, you're able to undo it. This is, again, not a far-stretched thinking. we have, if we look at these things, our body has the ability to make changes, adjustments. And in the case of, say, a tumor, where you have the capillary system that feeds the tumor, if you cut off the capillary systems, if you tie them off, basically, what you're doing is you're going to starve the tumor. Or in my case, since I didn't want to wait for all that, I developed little Pac-Men that would go in and eat up the tumor. And so you can visualize that. But once you clear the cancer, once you clear the tumor, you still have to understand that there's a reason for that lesson. So you need to have learned what the lesson is. And in my case, when I got cancer, I thought maybe I was paying an old debt that I had forgotten to make amends to somebody or do something that I needed to do, but it wasn't. Halfway through my cancer, I realized that it was most everything I've done is because I've walked the walk. And so it gave me an opportunity to experience cancer. And it's been more than 20 years now I've been in remission. And so, and I had colon rectal cancer, which is a deadly cancer. And I'm in remission. I've learned a lesson. I've moved on. It's just so I could be a better guy, so I can walk the walk. So let's think about these things. Let's think about how we can learn from these lessons. And the process is pretty simple. Many things in our lives are very simple and straightforward. They're not rocket science. If you envision a tumor or a cancer and you visualize the capillary attachments and whatnot, you can tie them off, or you can use the Pac-Man, or you can do whatever you want to do within your own visualization realm, and you can start reducing the cancer. Now, we always try to partner up with the oncologist or who is ever working with you on your cancer. And one of the things we learned was that it's not a good idea to cut off the capillaries if you are getting chemotherapy, because they need the medication to attack the cancer. And so in that case, we adjust the visualization, and we absolutely have the chemicals, the chemicals that'll kill the cancer right in on the Pac-Man or whatever it might be. So we accelerate the whole process. And at the same time, it does, since it's multitasking, it's blocking the, because only one cell goes through a capillary at a time. So if you're sending in these Pac-Men that are on their backpacks have chemicals that are going to dissolve the cancer itself, then what you're doing is, and also they're taking the waste out. Don't forget, as the cancer is dying, there's a residue of waste that has to be dealt with. And so that's being taken out and dispersed in your body, so it's released from your body in a safe and well manner. So as we're doing that process, it speeds up the whole thing. It just is incredible. And it gives you a sense of accomplishment. It gives you a sense of achievement. It gives you a sense of participation, which is a big deal. So you need to be willing to change every aspect of your life. That's another part of this lesson. So when you get something like any type of cancer or debilitating illnesses or anything, you have to tell yourself, okay, my whole life is going to change now. So let's just set my mindset that I need to make all the changes that I need to make. You don't just go halfway. You have to be willing to change every aspect of your life. And so it isn't easy to change either. Sometimes it's really hard, but if you have the willingness, then you'll be able to start making the steps or walking in the walk that you need to do to start to make these changes in your world. That will benefit you to a great deal. So here we have invited this cancer into your life to start with. And then you may need to look at what's the lesson? Why do I have this why have I invited this into my lifestyle? Why is it that I need to have this uncomfortable situation or this debilitating illness? these are the lessons that you learn. These are the things that you learn. You have to learn to be a good observer. You make observations about yourself. You look at the lessons that you're learning. And so you can learn from these experiences, and then you can change the outcome, because it's not a death sentence. This is something that can be actually taken care of and done with. So again, I want to offer my services, and the only payment is going to be that you give me a little testimonial, or you write a comment about how well this protocol has worked to clear up whatever you need to clear up. And again, for those that would like that help, you can get a hold of me through my email, or you can write a comment or whatever it is, and I'll do my best to get back a hold of you. So I've already done 4 of these, by the way, and so it's a big deal. I've been really heartfelt about some of the people that have reached out to me, and that how even in just one session we were able to clear a lot of drama and trauma in people's lives, and that's a big deal. So we'll keep moving on. Thank you again. Bye now.